Good morning. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here this morning. I am Paloma Perez-Bertrand with the San Diego Hunger Coalition. And I hope everyone had some time to sign in, get the PowerPoint for today. There's some coffee and snacks. Feel free to grab some. And we have a very packed agenda. We have wonderful presenters and the expert panel, so we're hoping to make your time enjoyable and valuable. First of all, I think it's very important to learn who's in the room so that you can network after the workshop. So let's go around the room, do introductions, and please share your name.
Hi everyone. So first, to understand the importance of these programs, we're going to get a little bit familiar with what food insecurity is. So food insecurity is known as the lack of access to physical and economic access to safe, nutritious, sufficient, culturally appropriate food that meets the dietary needs to live a healthy and active lifestyle. While food insecurity does impact everyone's health, it's especially detrimental to children's health, as it can impact their psychological and physical development. So I want you to imagine the last time you felt hungry. What are some of the emotions that you guys felt? Feel free to share them. Headache, anger,
Frustration,
tired, dizzy, stressed. If you're like me, maybe a little hangry. So now imagine if you're a parent, walking up to your refrigerator, opening it up, and there's nothing in there. And then walking your wallet, opening it up, and you realize you don't have money for the groceries for the next week. So this is what food insecurity looks like for a lot of families. Unfortunately, this is a case in San Diego with 1 in 7 people suffering from food insecurity and 1 in 5 children who go to school without being able to learn to their fullest capacity. It might lead to feelings of anxiety, depression, even anger. Some teachers may say their students are bouncing off the wall, they can't get them to focus. Many families in this situation may rely on school meals to get their children fed. And after school sites to provide supper relieve an additional burden to these families. So when you're food insecure, you tend to buy food that's more inexpensive, but that's less nutritious as well. So when kids are food insecure, they put on extra weight, which leads to obesity and sometimes obesity, which leads to chronic diseases such as diabetes or heart disease, something that affects them long-term and short-term. So on behalf of our team, we appreciate you all for being here today to learn about how to implement a nutrition service program into your enrichment program, something that has the power to change the lives of many children and their families.
At the San Diego Hunger Coalition, we believe that child nutrition programs are the most sustainable way to end childhood hunger, and that's what we're going to talk about after school supper. This is a federal program. The CACFP stands for Child and Adult Care Food Program, and through this program, community organizations and school districts can serve meals to low-income kids, or in places that are located in low-income areas and get reimbursed by the federal government for the meals served. However, in San Diego County, only 9% of kids enrolled in free and reduced price meals are actually receiving after school. So you see the gap, and that this is the problem that we're trying to find a solution to. The first time that I learned about CACFP was about 4 years ago. My previous role was with the San Isidro School District in the nutrition department. And one day, the superintendent came and he said, you know, the parents are really mad. They said that the middle schoolers, that the food that they're getting in the after-school program is not enough. You know, they're getting a granola bar and some juice. And then I thought, he said, we need to give them more. But then I thought, if we give them more, then it just goes out of my budget. And then the superintendent's gonna come back with a financial problem now, right? So how can we solve this? And I remember a nutrition director in San Diego County had mentioned something about CACFP. So I started reading about it, and then I went to 2 school districts in San Diego that were already doing after-school supper. And then I went to their sites and I see how were they doing it, how did it work. And then I went back to San Isidro, and we filled out the application, and 6 months later we started serving supper for the kids in after-school. So starting a program from scratch, the benefit of that is that there was a lot of trial and error, and I learned a lot of the little aspects of the program. And I wanted to show you this photo. A few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go to the Institute of Child Nutrition in Mississippi, and they have, so that's what they do. They do research around child nutrition, and they have an archive of photographs and documents. And the photo on the left really caught my attention. That's from the 1920s. It might be hard to see, but this is parents advocating for their kids to have a school lunch. So it kept me thinking, wow, like in the 1920s, people started realizing that, maybe food has an impact on education, right? But it wasn't until 1994 that a demonstration project was approved by the government to serve snacks in areas where, for teens that live in areas where that had high rates of crime. So only 20 years ago, people started realizing that maybe food has an impact on behavior. But what's more surprising is that only until 2010, only 10 years ago, the government approved to serve meals to all kids all over the nation that participated in school programs that were located in low-income communities. So yes, it takes a long time, but I wanted to share that change can happen. And why should we serve after-school meals? Research shows that it increases attendance, improves behavior, enhances academic performance. You know, it's a benefit for parents. They don't have to worry about dinner. It saves money for them, and it might save money for your program. And it also is an opportunity to improve nutrition education in the programs that you already have. Okay, so now what, right? How do we start? And for that, then Farah Abunadi. Everyone.
Thank you to the Hunger Coalition for having me. So just to kind of reintroduce myself, I am the CACFP and SFSP coordinator at Feeding San Diego. So Feeding San Diego is a sponsor of the CACFP, which means that we administer this program at multiple sites all over San Diego County. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about how to get started as a site and some of the differences between being a sponsor and being a site. Okay, so as a sponsor, we have a lot of responsibilities. Some of them are from the get-go. We submit all the site applications to the California Department of Education. We gather all the paperwork that we need from the sites in order to complete your application and get approved. So that's the first step. And then once the site is approved, we have to go through the notions of administering the program, which means doing weekly meal orders to the site, doing monitoring visits, making sure that the site is complying with food safety regulations, gathering paperwork from the site, and making sure that the site is doing their meal service correctly and that everything is okay. We also handle the coordination between the delivery service, which we use not much, and our sites. So that's kind of our responsibility as a sponsor. If you are a site and want to serve meals to kids at your after-school program, that's where you would coordinate with a sponsor like us to get all your paperwork in and to get trained and to conduct meal service at your site for the kids. So, these are some of the facilities that can be a CACFP site. So we have libraries, rec centers, nonprofit organizations, after-school sites at actual schools, faith-based organizations, and like apartment complexes. So basically anywhere that kids gather after school can potentially become a CACFP site and receive free meals. Some examples of the sites that we work with are actually going to be on the panel. So we have Pro Kids, and Rihanna can talk more about them. But they're an after-school site that teaches kids golf and other enrichment activities. We work with libraries all over San Diego County. We work with YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, and all kinds of fun organizations like that. And okay, so how do you become a site? What are the requirements? So technically, the only requirements to apply for the program is that your site is located in an attendance zone where one school in that attendance zone has a 50% or higher free and reduced price meals. And that you also have some kind of enrichment program. So it could be tutoring, it could be a sports activity, it could be like a counseling session, job readiness training. It could be anything like that. Those are the only two requirements to actually apply to participate in the program. However, once you start doing your application, there are a couple of things that you need. For example, if you're a nonprofit, you might need to show your proof of nonprofit status. You might have to have a fire permit. For us at Feeding San Diego, we usually require that the site has at least 20 participants and does activities at least 3 days a week. You also have to be trained annually, and you have to make sure that you're complying with food safety. So there's a bunch of little hoops that you have to go through to do your application. But I've heard from a lot of sites that once you're finally able to do it, you get approved for 5 years, and you're able to offer free meals to the kids there. So it is worth it in the long run. It just takes a while to actually get there. But that's where your sponsor should be able to help you. Okay?
Good morning, everybody. I am Karen Antoinette. I am from Mother's Windows. We are sponsors of CACFP and SFSP. We've been doing this for about 2 years as a sponsor. And so with that being said, it is very rewarding. You see the difference in the children, their attitude, their behavior. We have gone into 100 countries. There's a lot of fighting and the behaviors. Those behaviors go away. Feed the kids, the behaviors get better. So, part of being as a sponsor, we're required to just but you're also required to make sure that the paperwork is completed. If your paperwork isn't complete, if you're not monitoring your sites to make sure that you're compliant, you're going to get taken out of review. Every sponsor has to go through a review process with the Department of Education for each program. So because we do CACFP and SFSP, we get 2 reviews a year. Summer Food Service Program, I'm sorry. So whatever program you participate in, you're going to have a review from the state. So let's talk about the record keeping. As a site, you have
Your review for me.
per program year. So if you're doing 2 programs, you're going to do 2 reviews. As a site, you have to keep a record of the daily attendance. You have to do a daily meal count, and I'll go over what that is. When you're filling in the record, you're required to calculate meals that are delivered, and it's gonna be a temperature. The only time there's not a temperature is if everything in the meal is shelf stable. The record keeping, the count sheets are how you get reimbursed. The count sheets also tell you if you need to go do a visit. You can tell by the paperwork coming in from the site that they're not doing the program correctly and they may do a visit. I can't deliver 30 meals to a site, but they're serving 35. Where are they getting 5 more meals from? That's an indication that the site visit is needed. The attendance. Every child that comes in, now this is different, CACFP, I'm talking specifically CACFP, the students have to sign in. The sign-in sheet, along with the daily meal count, comes back to the sponsor. For every meal that's served, and what I mean by daily meal count, for every time the child is served the meal, and this is not a complete, no, but anyways, you check it off on the count sheet. After every child's been served, and you still have food left over, you can call for seconds. For CACFP, we do not get reimbursed for seconds, so we try to keep this to a minimum. If there's a food allergy as a site, you would give that information to us, the sponsor, and then we would do the necessary things necessary to take care of it. There's a medical statement form as a site that you get for any milk allergies, and it has to be, it's not a preference, it's a medical necessity. So there's a medical form for that. So nowadays we have a lot of milk allergies and peanuts and things like that. So say that we give you 20 meals, you have got 10 kids, they come and they eat, you've got 10 leftovers. Those leftovers will either roll over to the next day or your sponsors. We don't like to give you a lot of food to store up. That's a violation. If we're giving you too much food that you've got a lot of leftovers, that means that me as a sponsor, I'm mismanaging. The government does not want you making money. They're the first ones to tell you this is a not-for-profit program. Our job here is to feed the kids, not get rich. Another one of our jobs, and this is a big thing, is the monitoring. All new sites have to be monitored within the first 4 weeks. Each site has to be monitored at least 3 times a year. We have found that our driver is kind of my eyes and ears out there, so he will let me know if you're visit. Those visits, you're required to make 2 unannounced visits, and the other one can be an announced visit. I prefer them all to be unannounced. Right when they're supposed to be serving, say they serve at 3, I show up at 2:55. I don't see any food anywhere. That's a violation because the times that you give the state that you're serving meals, there better be some meals going on at that time. Let's see. So when you go into monitor, you are immediately, when you walk in, you're looking around the room. There's supposed to be a Justice for All poster hanging up where the kids are being served. So when you're walking in the room, you're looking, do I see a poster? Do I see a menu on the wall where you're writing the menu? It can be on the chalkboard, it can be on a piece of paper. The menu has to be posted, and Justice for All has to be posted. There are site rules, and the site rules are kind for the parents. It's really hard when you are giving food to children after school, when you know you're serving in an area where there's food security, and a parent is with that child and sitting with that child, especially in the libraries, and they're just giving the kids food and they're eating, that's a violation. Parents cannot eat out of the child's food. There's ways around that. Talk about that later, so, best practices for a relationship with your sponsor. The training is mandatory. They tell you there's a training and it's mandatory. Show up. Have your signs up during your meal times, and then follow the procedures for receiving the meals. Communication with your sponsor is key. I would rather hear from you every day with what you think is a silly question than to not hear from you at all and find out when I go for lunch or who's answering all these questions and you're doing it. So, let us know.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. And please, yes, there's tons of rules for the program, but it's doable and people are doing it, and we have tools and resources and an amazing group of people here in San Diego that can support you through the process. And now I'll pass it to Leonie Connor. She's the Chief Operating Officer at Top Notch.
Hey everyone, so I'm going to talk about fun things and meal components, and I'll talk about, and you're right, I brought extras just to show extras. That one bucket's not compliant, but the other two are. So for our company, to explain, we service over 79 programs or schools in San Diego County, and we do a mix of breakfast, NSLP, the supper programs, and snack programs, and summer meal service. And we work with Feeding San Diego as our sponsor, which I'll go into the difference between a vendor and a sponsor. I hope you click the right thing. Okay, so for your components, you can see some of the samples that I brought up front. So for your milk, it's going to be a 1 cup equivalency. It could be the fat-free or the 1%. For your chocolate, as long as it's fat-free, any flavored milk has to be fat-free. For your protein component, your meat alternate, it's a 2 ounce equivalency. So when I say equivalency, it doesn't mean it's always weighing exactly 2 ounces. Say for instance, our pizzas. We make everything from scratch in our kitchen, so the dough we're making is hitting your grain equivalency, which for the brown rice is a 1/2 cup. But for each thing, it's weighted differently. So say for instance, for your grain pizza in comparison to a sandwich, the bread hits the same equivalency as the dough because it's based on the amount of grains that are in it, not the weight itself. Sometimes that's confusing when you're being audited, so just to go over the differences with that. For your fruit, it's a 1/4 cup. So I brought an apple and a mandarin to show the difference between mandarins. You typically need to serve 2 mandarins just because they're smaller, just so you can know if an auditor does ask that type of thing. And we're using a local organic supplier for all of our oranges, so they're coming in multiple different sizes. Some of them was a 3 cup equivalency, honestly, that we've had to be careful with. But just so you know the differences between not every fruit is the same. Same for vegetables. For your 1/2 cup portion, I wanted to show 2 differences. That for any of our salads, we use either a 6 ounce container or a 4 ounce container based on the equivalencies that we're trying to meet. And then for our sliced vegetables, we do it in a little baggie for the 1/2 cup portion. And for your veggies, there's different nuances that you have to meet throughout the week of your red, your legumes, all of those type of components. So for our company, we try to blend different things. All of our salads, we do jicama salads, corn salads, and bean salads. They have a little bit of the red vegetable throughout the week rather than just having, say, pico de gallo or just carrots as your red vegetable. So those nuances I could go over with you separately, but just to go over, it's not just the portion sizes itself, there's still other nutritional aspects to it too. What kind of foods can you serve? Paloma had a really good point that she wanted to show the differences between snacks, things that are made from scratch or that you're retherming. Every program can look different based on the site that you're in. So some of our sites, we only drop off twice a week because we'll do a hot meal service on Monday and Wednesday. And then the other 3 days are either shelf-stable components or cold meal components based on the units that they have on hand. So just keep this in mind that every site's different, every program looks different based on the restrictions and the staffing that they have overall. And sponsor versus vendor. So like I said previously, we're working with Feeding San Diego as our sponsor. A sponsor has to be a nonprofit entity. That's the biggest difference between a vendor and a sponsor. So for us, the sponsor is doing, I kind of think of it as doing all of the admin portion. Yeah, all of the paperwork fun stuff that the state's gonna look at. And then for the vendor, we supply the paperwork portion on the production records, which is the biggest thing you are being audited on. But we're audited on the nutritional components and our software systems that are keeping that in place for you. And for a vendor as well, you can work through a sponsor, or a vendor can work with a site specifically. Say if a YMCA or a Boys and Girls Club wanted to work with us and be their own sponsor, they can. There's different nuances with it. And if you have more questions after, feel free to ask me. I think that's it for curriculum. Okay. Oh, website tour. Oh, yay, another fun part. Oh, yeah. So I just updated our website recently to showcase some of our new meal components, to go over more information on the programs that we do. And oh look, isn't it pretty? Okay. Let me see if I can scroll down. Oh, perfect. So I made different little subsections to showcase the differences between the programs that we're doing. Differences between school districts, private schools, and what our CACFP is. And then for our families and our sites, I wanted to have a portion for showcasing all of our food, our new items too. So that families can go on here and see that it's a USDA compliant program. Our staff, they start at 4 a.m. every day, so I wanted a little portion so that they could see that everything we're doing is being made from scratch. And then they can go over each one. And one last portion to show the differences between a vendor and a sponsor was I wanted to go over our story a little bit too. Oh yeah, I forgot about that photo. So for one of the things that I've been trying to do for our company is to really show what our staff is doing daily. Something that's different for us is that we're trying to work with a lot of local organic farmers. Farmers are now supplying specific produce just for us that they're growing. And for our team, I wanted to show more of what our staff is doing daily. The staff, they work so hard to put these programs together. I know that's one of the pieces that it seems so simple from the outside, looking at everything put together, and there's so much work involved with it that I just want to show the people like you that are involved with it daily, they need to be showcased more to families that are thinking about doing this.
Hey, thank you, Mary. So I think some presenters mentioned SFSP, that's the summer feeding program, and I wanted to share that there are sites, and I know some of you share that you are serving during the summer and then looking into serving year round. So once you're an after-school summer meal provider, it's very easy for you to make the transition into summer. And summer is actually a little bit easier because the enrichment component, the fact that you have to provide an enrichment program, is not needed. So the requirement in summer is that you're serving in a low-income area. I mean, it's always nice to have activities for the children, but that is not a requirement. And if you are serving summer meals right now, it's actually easier as well to just continue into the year and serve after-school meals because the meals look very similar, and the way that the program is monitoring that and everything it's really similar. So you're just set up for success. Reasons why you should consider being a sponsor, right? Because now we've heard what it is to be a site, but why would you want to be a sponsor? Well, number one, if your organization is eligible, right? When we talk like if you're a non-profit, that makes you eligible if you're serving kids, if you have an after-school program. So if you check that, and then I listed a few reasons, one of the biggest reasons if you have the capacity in your organization, if you have someone that can take care of the administration of the program. And then if you want the money, right? If you want the reimbursement from the government, and then if you want the freedom to use that money to get the meals that you want, or maybe you have a cooking program, and maybe you're thinking, well, if I use that reimbursement and just shape my cooking program so that the meals I prepare meet the nutritional requirements, then that's another reason. So first things first, I hate to say this, but there's nowhere on the website for the California Department of Education where you can go and download an application and fill it out and turn it in for being a sponsor. That is what's so hard for some people to kind of understand, like, what do I do, right? So first things first, it all starts with calling CDE. You actually have to call and express your interest in becoming a sponsor. Then that's the first step, and it ends with someone from CDE coming to your organization and doing a pre-approval visit to your site. So there's a few steps in between, and I'm gonna go over them. And then feel free to ask questions as I go, so that we have enough time. So, like I said, it all starts with a call. There's also an email, but usually they will tell you to call someone. Then that person from CDE will call you back with more information. So what they want to do is to do a pre-screening. They do some questions because they want to see, like, if this is serious, right? If you qualify for doing this program before they give you an application. So some of the questions that they ask is, what type of organization are you? Are you a government entity? Are you a school? Are you an after-school program? Boys and girls, YMCA, whatever you are. If you are considered a nonprofit, if you are tax exempt, how long have you been in operation? Are you going to operate at more than one site or maybe many sites? Are the sites part of the same legal entity? So what they mean by that is there are some sponsors like Feeding San Diego that deliver meals to different organizations, and they don't share anything with them, right? They don't have the same tax ID. They're not the same organization. So for that, the state calls them as sponsors of unaffiliated sites. So that's one type. And when you have just one program in your site and you want to be a sponsor for that, or maybe you have many sites, but they're all part of your organization and you have the same ID number, tax ID number, then they are part of the same legal entity. So when talking to CDE, something that happened this year is that they're holding any applications for new sponsors of unaffiliated sites because they're reviewing the regulations. They said that maybe by September they're gonna have more information, but that doesn't mean that you can start being ready for it, or if you're just planning to be a sponsor of just your site, the same legal entity, then you can apply. And once they go through all the questions and they said, okay, you are eligible to become a site, CDE, the CDE is California Department of Education, will create an account for you. It's a web-based account. It's called the Child Nutrition Information and Payment System. We call it CNIPS. And every school district or every entity that operates any kind of child nutrition programs has an account. So in this website, you're going to be able to download any applications. You're going to be able to find any forms needed for the program. And you're also, this is what you use to submit the claims. And then when the government sends you the reimbursement checks, there's an electronic copy of this file. So, you know, it's very technological. So no, you don't have to be sending paper back and forth. So the application itself, and I want to thank Heaven Windows for letting me make copies of the application, because this is something that you cannot get anywhere unless you call and then you go to the pre-screening questions. So this is something that I wanted to share with you. The application is simple, but it needs to, it has a lot of information that you're gonna need time to get, and then probably, there's probably someone else in your team has that information. Like basic information, address, tax ID, who's gonna be the person responsible for the program, who's gonna who do you think, how many people you think you're gonna serve, what's the capacity of the sites, things like that. But what CDE really cares about is that if your organization is financially viable to run the program. Do you have that capability, do you have already effective management practices in place? Do you have an organizational structure, a staffing plans? Do you have a plan as to, if you do this program, who's gonna do the administrative part, who's gonna do the monitoring? No, they wanna ensure that you have the capacity to be a successful sponsor. They want to know if you have some emergency funds as in case the funds are not available. So to explain that, because this is a reimbursement program, you have to start with your own money, right? Because they're going to give you your first check based on the meals that you serve. So and besides that, something that can happen is that sometimes if you submit the claim and there's an error, maybe they're gonna give it back to you, just to fix the error. So that may delay the payment. And something that happened, remember when the federal government shut down? Then I remember getting emails from the government saying your payments might be delayed. So it didn't happen, everything was good. But just like these type of scenarios, they wanna make sure that you have a cushion, right, in case you need, so that you can continue running the programs even on those situations. They want to ensure program accountability, that if you have the internal controls and systems to ensure fiscal accountability, the role of your governing board making the decisions for your organization, who is responsible for maintaining the records of the programs and accounting for all the costs. So the program divides the costs in administrative costs and payroll. Well, that includes labor and payroll. Operating costs, that's pretty much the cost of running the program. Food supplies, benefits, equipment, rent. Now food, I want to mention again, no, you don't have to prepare the food. You can just vend with someone else, right, with a vendor. I heard some confusion as well as to sponsor vendor, and it's kind of like a mix and match thing. You can be a sponsor, a vendor, and a site at the same time, right, if you're preparing your own food. But you can be a sponsor, meaning that you have a contract with the state and get your food from a vendor so that they just deliver it and serve your site within your organization. Or you can be just a site and you wouldn't, and someone else will take care of the administrative part of the program and someone else will take care of preparing the food. Right, so it's a little confusing, but hopefully that makes sense, and then feel free to ask questions. And once you become a sponsor, the state agency, who is the Department of Education, right, this is a federal program, so we're using taxpayer money, and they want to make sure that you are using the money for its purpose of feeding kids. So part of the monitoring is it's very similar what a sponsor monitors for a site. What Karen shared, we go and we make sure that the meals are there and all these things. It's very similar to what the state does to monitor you as a sponsor. So
And sometimes I have to say when they come to monitor the state, sometimes you don't see them. It's like,
yeah.
they'll make their presence known towards the end. They want to see how you serve. And that just comes to me. So I was like, it's very specific how they want this program to work. Very specific. And as long as you follow and do what they want you to do, you'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's as I mentioned again, it's taxpayer money, right? And we want to ensure that it's not used for something else. And yeah, so the state has to do our job as we have to do our job, and everybody is just doing their job. But there's a lot of resources out there, trainings, conferences, and tables that you can be part of to get resources, some best practices. There's a community nationwide that you can join, and you don't have to do it alone, right? Like everybody else is doing, there's more people doing it, and they already went through a lot of challenges, and the solutions are there. So the application process might take several months. When I did it at a school district, it took about 6 months. So it's not something that you apply today and you're going to start serving meals right away. They want to make sure that you're eligible, that you have everything in place, that you have a budget plan, an administrative plan, and that you attend training, that you train your staff. So once everything is set up, then you get started. It takes about 6 months. So just putting it there, and really stakeholder engagement is key to make it happen. This is something that you can start exploring, or if it's something that works for your organization. Some of you already have programs in place and people working in that program, so you can talk about it and see if it's something feasible for you to become a sponsor, or for you to contact. If your program is at a school district, maybe the best way to do that is to contact the nutrition department at the school district. If you're out in the community and you're a large organization, maybe the best option for you is to be your own sponsor. Or maybe if you are in the community and you're very, very small and you can barely, you're CEO but you're doing everything, then you might need a sponsor and just do the side. One size doesn't fit all, so that's why we're doing this workshop. It's a lot of information. Even if you read it, if you go to our website and read a manual, it's very confusing. So we're hoping that this cleared some of your questions, and to say that they have inclusion of first technical assistance through the process, and we have the Hunger Free Kids Task Force that are experts in the field and they can answer questions